Hello again. I have touched on this subject before, and whenever I have done so, some fool is bound to claim that I have in the past compared black people to savage dogs. This is, of course, quite untrue, but I dare say that somebody commenting here will now proceed to make the same claim. 70 years ago, the famous British scientist J.B.S. Haldane observed in detail the way in which anthropology, the study of the human species, can be conducted in the same objective fashion that we study animals. And he gave the example of dog breeds as a useful instance of how this might be done. This was in 1956, and I give a link to his article in the description to this video. Before going any further, let me just read out what I myself said on the matter in a video on this channel a few years ago. The one, that is, which caused people to claim that I was comparing black people to ferocious dogs. I said, a lot of people are perplexed when watching a television documentary about, say, pygmies in Central Africa. Here are people who are a foot or so shorter than the average American or British person, whose skins are a completely different colour, and whose skulls tend to have different proportions, and yet they do not apparently belong to a different race at all. The very idea is dangerous nonsense. Sometimes those trying to get to grips with the supposed non-existence of human races will wonder idly about the case of domesticated dogs, which all belong to the single species of Canis familiaris, and yet show enormous variation in physical appearance, temperament, and intelligence. All the arguments regarding mixed ancestry and jumbled genetic heritage, which are routinely trotted out to demonstrate the non-existence of human races, could equally well be applied to the pet dog. It remains undeniably true, though, that while the average parent might allow his small child to romp on the floor with a friendly spaniel, he would be very ill advised to allow the same behaviour with an American pit bull terrier. After all, although they comprise only 6% of the dogs in the United States, pit bulls are responsible for almost 70% of attacks on humans by dogs and over half of dog-related deaths. Although you may not be aware of it, this comparison between the canine and human world has been the subject of speculation since the 1950s. And then I gave the reference to what Haldane had written. For those who interpret this as comparing black people to dangerous dogs, I can only say that it says more about them and their subconscious minds than it does about what I actually said. The point I wished to make was that there are as many inherent differences, both physical and mental, between human populations as there is between different breeds of domestic dog. Two examples will suffice to make this point. Black babies tend to reach their gross motor milestones, crawling, standing, walking, and jumping, before white children. This tendency for black babies to reach their gross motor milestones earlier than white children is international and cross-cultural. It has been seen alike in black children in American cities, those raised on farms in the Caribbean, and children born in the African rainforest, say nothing of black children in the United Kingdom. Black children simply develop faster than white ones. I give a reference for this in the description to this video. It seems to be inherent, and it is very noticeable that black children are far less prone to developmental delays in this area than white children. When it comes to intellectual delays, though, relating to the acquisition of expressive language, say, these tend to be less common in white children than in those who are black. Now, we can certainly debate the possible significance of these phenomena, and try to tie them into cultural factors rather than genetic predispositions. We can, of course, also argue about what lingering long-term effects, if any, might persist into adulthood. It has been suggested that the early acquisition of the ability to stand, walk, and jump might account in part for the fact that there are so many black athletes, footballers, and so on. The increased tendency towards developmental delays in language acquisition and other aspects of mental development has been linked by some to the academic achievement gap in later life, whereby black students are less likely to gain first-class degrees at university than white students. All this is debatable and uncertain. What is not debatable, however, is that these childhood differences exist, whether we are looking at Britain or the United States or any other part of the world. From all that we are able to apprehend, these differences are real and they appear to be cross-cultural, cropping up wherever we look. Just as some dogs are fleet of foot and suitable for racing, greyhounds and whippets say, others are better at being guard dog or sheepdog. And so too it might very well be the case that some human populations are more suited to doing certain things rather than others. Now, why this should be shocking to anybody, I really have no idea at all. It seems to me no more than another aspect of nature, something we observe all over the animal kingdom. We too are animals, and I cannot see any reason, other that is than the purely ideological, why it should not also be the case with our own species. Returning now to the idea that I have ever suggested that black people are like savage dogs, that anybody should draw such a conclusion based on the kind of things I've been saying on this channel tells me something interesting about that person's psychology, rather than it shedding any light on my own thought processes or beliefs. I will content myself with saying that if any human ethnicity is especially savage and given to killing large numbers of other humans, then I'm not at all sure that it is people of sub-Saharan ancestry at whom we should be looking. I can think of another group whose organisation of death and destruction on an industrial scale by means of war, famine, and organised murder far outstrips anything carried out in Africa or by Africans living in other countries.